All right, welcome everybody back on our Hampshire webcast podcast. Shane Carter here. With me, as always, is Eddie Austin. How you doing, Eddie?
Doing great, man. And today we're going to talk about a really cool subject. This one is kind of near and dear to my heart because I absolutely love helping other people, same as you do, and especially when it comes to cash flow and ways to mitigate taxes and still receive a quarterly check. So today we're going to talk about 5 different ways that you can receive cash flow and possibly remove taxes.
All right, I like it. Well, let's go. What's number one?
I think number one, maybe you've got a piece of real estate that you're going to sell, or you're exiting a piece of real estate. And you're either thinking of engaging in a 1031 or in the really savvy model, the deferred sales trust, which is the preferred way in my opinion. What you would receive from that sale, you could invest that into an LP risk-adjusted return and receive a quarterly check. You would receive cash flow from that. And then on top of that, you're going to sell something. You're not going to have to deal with buying another piece of property. You're exiting something. It's kind of like selling a boat, right? That's the 2 best ways, the 2 best times when you buy the boat, when you sell the boat, right? Now, for me, I'm a boat lover, so I got to try and get another boat. But
yeah, same here.
What I'm talking about though is if you exit that piece of property and you're finally done with it, rather than going out and buying another one, you could take that money and you could invest it still in real estate, but receive a quarterly check, which is even better.
Yeah, and so that's a great option for folks who are at that point in life where they don't want to deal with the tenants' toilets and trash anymore, and they want to trade in that they want to trade in the 3 T's, the tenants' toilets and trash, or we could even add termites, right? Make it the 4 T's. They want to trade it in for the 3 C's: cocktails, country clubs, and cruises, and they just want to be passive. They don't want to deal with the active side of the business anymore, right? So that's a great option for those folks who understand real estate and they just don't want to deal with the active side of it anymore. They want to invest with savvy operators in really good, amazing returns in this environment, right, and get their quarterly checks and get their depreciation loss from the asset, because we do bonus depreciation on every asset. And so they can still save their capital gains, like you said, either through a 1031 or deferred sales trust, and still enjoy the benefits of real estate without having to do the work. So that's option 1. What else do we have?
Well, option 2 is really cool because option 2 is even more of pretty catchy. So refis are free, right? You don't have to claim taxes on refis.
Yeah.
So refi a piece of property, take that money and put it into a LP structure, invest it with someone.
Yeah. So you're saying that the active owner operator of real estate don't even have to sell the property. They just refinance it. Maybe they've held it for a while. And look, let's be honest. Is now a good time to refinance? Probably not. You should have probably done that 3 years ago, right?
Right.
However, if you didn't, are interest rates going to be substantially better in a year? Yeah, maybe. We all hope so, right? But I would say now is a decent time to refi if you have hundreds and hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars of equity that's just sitting there, and you can't access it, and it's not going to work for you. So you're worried about having a refi at 6% or 6.5% or 5.8, whatever, somewhere in that range, right? That you can get your money out for. When the reality is, okay, well, let's say you take that money out at 6% interest, but look, what if you're getting 20, 25, 30% a year in returns on it? That's a great arbitrage to keep your money working, even though we're all a little afraid of this interest rate environment we're in right now. But historically speaking, it's still not bad.
Right. If it makes sense, it makes sense. And I'm thinking about, maybe a baby boomer, got out of the military and bought him a multifamily property with some money he had, or took one over from a mother or a father, and they've had this thing since like 2020, or 2000, so early 2000s, and they're at 23 years. They're close to paying this thing off, but they've got a crap ton of equity in it. Also, let's talk about option 3.
All right, what's number 3?
The infinite banking. So I'm going to let you touch on this subject because you know this very well. You do it yourself.
Yeah, so I mean, infinite banking is really having a whole life or universal life insurance policy that you overfund, the value builds up, and then you can actually borrow money from yourself, right? So that's your money. You're invested in this life insurance vehicle, and then you can take that money and that same amount of money that's growing. Sort of diversified and in a different vehicle separate from real estate, you can almost like an equity refi of an asset. You can take a loan against that, and you can use that money to invest in other things, right? So while it's still growing over there in that life insurance vehicle, you're borrowing against that money and essentially using it a second time while it's still growing in its vehicle. You're borrowing against the value of that, and you take that money and again you reinvest it where there's an arbitrage. So you're getting a loan out, and again let's call it 6%, but you're getting that arbitrage of being able to get an 8% preferred rate of return interest on a quarterly basis. So even on a quarterly basis, you're sort of making a small arbitrage, but then in the life cycle of the investment, again you're getting 16, 18, 20, 25%, annual returns on that investment. The arbitrage is very large, right?
Right. Especially when it comes to the waterfall, the exit of, when we actually exit a piece of property and we sell it and we return our investors' capital.
Yep.
That waterfall of a 70% waterfall goes back to the investor. That's when the returns really get high.
Yeah. And you can also use it in a way where, let's say you're not fully vested in that policy and you haven't really made all of your contributions yet. Well, you can let your money that you took out of that and invest it over here. And let's say you doubled that money in a 4-year or a 5-year investment, and now you have twice that amount of money. Well, let's say you pay off, you're paying the interest obviously, but you put all of that now back in your universal insurance policy. And now you basically had your investment pay itself twice to go back in there, and you've grown your investment in that vehicle. So now you have twice the amount of money that you can pull out and loan again and do it again and again. And you're not actually putting any more of your own sort of cash into the policy. You're just investing it in a way that allows that policy to grow by itself. In addition to and separate from the way it's already growing as a separate non-correlated vehicle. So that's a great option, and that is why I use it myself.
That is pretty cool. So then, both of us are business owners, and we all have crossed this bridge or this road. You're making a bunch of cash. You're coming up at the end of the year, or you're coming up at mid-year. Say you're doing your taxes quarterly, and your CPA calls up and says, Shane, you've done really well this first 2 quarters, and you've got a bunch of money sitting, and your half-year taxes aren't looking good, and you probably need to go buy some new equipment, and you need to go buy things. Well, if you go buy brand new F-350s, the insurance is going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always the catch-22 is, when you add more money to the business, a lot of the times the expenses go up somehow, some way.
Yeah. Yeah, and so this is number 4. This is the 4th way that you can do this. And look, I've owned multiple businesses in my career. I know you've owned businesses, and the truth is the best investment you can make is in your own business, right? You're in control of it, you're managing it, you're growing your business. However, oftentimes we all get to the point at some point. I know I did. I got to the point where there was a diminishing rate of return in me investing in my own business, right? And so what do I mean by that? Well, I was in a place where I didn't want to grow that business. I didn't want it I didn't want to have twice the amount of employees and twice the headaches of that particular business that I was in, and twice the overhead and twice the expenses. And, making that extra money, sure was nice, but I didn't want the extra costs of doing so in terms of running that size of a business. I wanted to keep it a certain size and keep it manageable.
Right.
But what you're talking about is folks who are in that place. You're still churning out nice cash flow. And what are you doing with that cash? Investing passively in real estate is a fantastic way to have a diversified risk portfolio.
Yeah. I mean, it gets rid of the cash off your books.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you a quarterly return and can give you some tax depreciation, especially like some of the tax depreciation that we've seen. One of the properties that we've underwrote and currently working on closing, if someone invested $100,000, they would receive a $200,000 K1 loss, correct?
Yeah. Now, look, that's an outlier. That's not a common situation. What we really shoot for is, trying to get, if you invested $100,000, that you get $100,000 depreciation loss in that first year. I mean, that's an amazing deal. Like you said, if you got a tax problem, rather than going out and buying, more equipment, more tools, more, people, that's why people buy, large vehicles, right? Because, you can use Section 179 and write it off. Those are depreciating assets. And it's just a way to have something that you can buy for the business that you don't probably need, and you just feel better about doing that instead of handing it to the IRS, right? Well, what if instead you actually thought like an investor and said, hey, why don't I take that same amount of money and invest it over here and let it grow at that, again, 16, 18, 20, 25% annual rate of return. And I'm also getting those same tax write-off benefits right away. That's sort of the best of both worlds.
Right. And I think I can be honest with the audience here and say, I didn't have this education or mindset. I would have loved to run across a podcast like this to even give me that option that I didn't even know existed, because you're sitting here with all this money you've made and you feel good about it, and your CPA saying you got to spend money, and that you're in your optimal circle right now, that's the perfect wheel. Mm-hmm. If I add more and make it bigger, my expenses are going to cling on to it, and it's going to slow my flywheel down. So that you don't want to grow, but yet you don't want to hand the IRS money. So if I would have known way back when that I could take my money and invest it into something that would send me a quarterly check, I would have jumped all over. That's for sure.
Yeah.
At that time, I didn't know about it. I do today.
And gave you the same depreciation, tax benefits and write-offs, right? I mean, that's really the beauty of real estate is that it pays you in so many different ways.
So let's talk about number 5, and this is where you just get flat done with the business. You know what? You've grown this thing exponentially. You've done everything you've done. You're tired of the the daily doing. You're just ready to jump in the country club. You're ready to go have the cocktails and the cruises.
And go on the cruises. You got it.
Right. So you're ready to do all that. And, you've grown this business. You're at a point you're just going to sell this thing. At that point, when you sell a business, you're probably at a point you're not going to go start another business. So you don't need the capital for that. So you're probably going to take this capital and you're going to want some type of return structure off of it. Now, I wouldn't recommend throwing that in the stock, bond, and mutual fund world. But however, real estate, and still in my opinion, is probably one of the greatest investments on the planet, because it's just not going to go anywhere. They don't make any more of it. They make more stocks, but they don't make any more real estate. So if you sold that business, I would really tell my business owner friends and family, invest it in real estate. And I don't mean go invest it yourself, because that's a whole nother headache.
Yeah.
I mean, find someone that has a passive income opportunity. What I mean by that is hands off mailbox money, literally get a check in the mail every quarter. That's who I'm trying to reach, is the guy that's like, you know what? I am tired of running the business.
Yeah.
I am tired of running the multifamily. I am tired of running the convenience store.
Yeah, and look, I'm just going to throw in here, because I've known a number of different guys that have exited businesses for multiple 7- and 8-figure exits. And unfortunately, they did not know about a deferred sales trust, and therefore they actually had to pay egregious taxes because of those large exits, right? And so a deferred sales trust isn't just to save a failed 1031 exchange. It isn't just as a way to defer taxes on real estate. You can also use it for deferring taxes on selling a business, right? And so this option, this number 5 that we're talking about, deferred sales trust is a really, really thoughtful vehicle for that as well, and something that folks should consider. I know that one of the guys that I was speaking to earlier this year that exited, I told him about it, and he just punched me in the shoulder, and he said, "Why the hell didn't you tell me about this 6 months ago?" I said, "I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that you were selling. You didn't consult with me that you were selling your business at that time, right?" So yeah, and look, we know some folks who are exiting businesses right now. We're talking about using some of their money to invest with us in real estate. And yeah, you don't look. Any diversified investment thesis is not that you put all your eggs in one basket, right? You want to pick your investments. You want to allocate, intelligently, and you really want to allocate based upon your individual risk profile, what you're looking to achieve, and your financial objectives. But look, I think as the ultra high net worth individual, large family offices that have 8-9 figures plus. There's multiple studies that come out every year. There's a great group called Tiger 21 that puts out a number as well. And they consistently show that, a minimum right now, folks in that class are actually allocating more towards real estate. But in general, they usually have about 25 to 30% of their investable cash in real estate at any given time. And you hold some in cash and you hold some in equities and various other things. Maybe you invest in other businesses if you're into venture capital. But a pretty strategic and wise hedge is putting 25 to 30% of your net worth in investable real estate. Now, you and I work in this field and we work in this business, so I can say that mine is substantially higher than that range. Right. But for your average person who doesn't really understand real estate or know it or didn't make their wealth in real estate, that's a pretty wise benchmark to be thinking about. Obviously, those of us that had made or are and had made their money in real estate, they tend to invest more in real estate because it's what they know, right? It's how they made their money. But we certainly have seen plenty of benchmarks that put it in that 25 to 30% range for folks who don't know real estate.
Right, exactly. And, that's one of the reasons we do this podcast, every week is, to educate. And I feel like, you shouldn't really invest in anything you don't actually understand or don't have any education on. And with that, that's why we do this here, is to educate people on the investment, because I don't feel like there's enough education on real estate investing and different ways to do it. I feel like a lot of people feel like the only way you can invest in real estate is go buy a sheriff's sale home and for $5,000 put in a bunch of sweat equity and hopefully sell it. And that's not it. Or they say, loan it to a hard money lender and somebody else goes and buys a house or something like that, subject to. But it's not about that. There's so many ways to invest in real estate. There's so many ways to preserve your wealth and grow your wealth in just real estate. And when you really get into real estate, the different types of real estate, you've got short-term rentals, you got long-term rentals, you've got RV parks, land development deals, oil and gas. There's so many different ways now that are coming out. Rent communities.
And even the commercial real estate sector, right? You've got industrial, you've got warehouse, you've got office, you've got medical office, you've got multifamily, you got A class, B class, C class, value add. You've got mobile home parks. You've got all of these different asset classes, right? You've got retail. You've got strip plazas and malls and things like that. So there's just an infinite way to put your money in real estate. However, why do we focus on multifamily? Not only because it's what we know and what we've been doing for 20 plus years, but it's also evergreen. People will always need homes.
Absolutely.
Always.
Right. And there's no better cost segregation study than 400 plus doors.
Yeah, those are pretty good. Yeah, we like those deals for sure. All right, so those are the 5. We got through it, and I think those are fantastic ways.
Yeah, let's summarize. So number 1, you've got the sale of a property.
Yep.
That's number 1. Then you got, if you refi that piece of property, you just got a bunch of equity in it, and you just want to get that equity back out. So there's your refi. You can do the infinite banking model, which is really cool. You can make the arbitrage from the 6%, whatever you're making in your preferred return.
Yep, for your whole or universal life insurance policies, right?
Yep. And then you've got a bunch of cash in the business. You've made a bunch of cash. You've done really well in the business. And you're just in that perfect circle where you don't want to add any more expenses. You don't want brand new trucks. You just want to keep on going like you're going. That's the number 4. Number 5 is if you just get tired of it, you sell the business, and you do that 8-figure exit, and you're ready for the cocktails and the cruises and the country clubs. That's
right. And those are all very legitimate and intelligent ways to think about how to invest in real estate passively, and get some depreciation loss, get some of the amazing benefits that we all know and understand about real estate. All right, buddy. Well, hey, thanks again. Another great episode. Appreciate it as always, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, man. See ya.